What's up, gentlemen? How we doing today?
What's up?
Excellent.
NFC Roundtable, finally back. We're gone for a couple weeks here and there, but we're here now, right?
We are here now.
Anything going on in the league? You guys think we should touch on? Well, let's start the show here so we can get this talk out of the way, if we will. Frank Gore has officially announced that he will sign a one-day contract with the Niners and retire from the league. Now, my question to you is Frank Gore Hall of Fame worthy? Third all-time leading rusher in the NFL with 16,000 yards. But it's the longevity that got him there. I mean, do you think he's Hall of Fame worthy?
So we should actually start that by saying pretty much anybody that plays for San Francisco after the first day would want to retire also. Period. But you actually look at his body of work, he was always able to block, always able to catch, always able to run, always able to do those intangibles. And I'd say absolutely he's probably a Hall of Famer.
I mean, he's going to have to wait, right? I mean, he's not going in
first ballot. No.
Oh God, no. But I'm not saying he's not going in for a while. You're talking what, 5 years, 6 years after retiring, maybe 10 years. Frank Gore gets in the Hall of Fame.
Could, I mean, theoretically, could be longer than that. I mean, there's guys that are still waiting for their call that, quite honestly, should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, one in particular. I know Andy knows this guy is Steve McMichael. Who? That guy has been waiting forever. And look at his stats.
I don't want to say this, but I think Mongo gets in, but it's going to be like they did with Santo. It's going to be after
the fact.
Yeah, it's terrible to say because he should have been in already, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, he was actually part of that defensive course again. One of the better in league history, and with his current situation and things like that, and things are, of course, getting, progressing. And I think you're absolutely right. But you had names like Richard Dan Hampton, and what about Gary Fenwick? He was always an exceptionally strong player. Then you got all these other little names that are on there. Dewerson, which, of course, with the CTE thing that he had and, that type of thing. But Emery Moorhead, I mean, you had all these names from a team that could potentially have been. Then you have that one guy, Mike Singletary, who of course is, but he was just the one who basically captained that defense.
No, Mike Singletary,
all those names. But with
he's
all those
only in the
names,
Hall of Fame for his eyes. I mean, he captivated. Honestly, he captivated NFL fans with his pregame antics. Talking. I mean, he was a good player. Don't get me wrong, but he was nowhere near the best player on that defense.
He didn't have to be the best player. He just had to be the one to captain the ship to one of the better defenses in league history.
Oh, I agree.
He was always in the right place at the right time because of film, because of his entire cerebral that we're talking. He was just one of those players. I mean, he absolutely deserved to be in the Hall.
But so Frank Gore, does he go in before? Is Roger Craig even in yet? I mean, I don't think Roger Craig's in the Hall of Fame yet.
No, I don't think so either.
Roger Craig basically reinvented the position. He became a pass-catching running back. I mean, Roger Craig was versatile. Frank Gore is good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if he's Hall of Fame worthy.
In my opinion, I mean, you got to look. I mean, besides you looking at the total amount of yards he's racked up and stuff like it. Granted, it's impressive to be in the top three, but it took him, how many years? It took him. I mean, did he ever win a rushing title? Did he win a Super Bowl? I mean, there's a lot, MVPs. There's a lot of factors that go in to these Hall of Fame votes, just besides, your whatever your statistical rating is,
and that's valid.
I mean, it's just to me. I mean, is he a good running back, or was he a good running back? Absolutely, but I mean, in terms of was he great? I mean, honestly, I can't think of anything that says well, yeah, well, look what he did that year. Look what he did that year. Look what there's nothing that's eye popping to me.
Well, let me ask you this: what's more Hall of Fame worthy, great or consistent? Because great can give you 1, 2, 3 years. Consistent gives you a career.
You're right. I get 100%. You're not wrong. But my thing is he's going to go in, but Roger Craig needs to go in before he does.
You're right. There's people that honestly deserve to go before he does.
But
yeah, I think he should be in. I don't see him being first, maybe not even the second ballot, but no, I definitely think he's going to be in.
Oh yeah, he'll be there. So speaking of Hall of Fame careers, we have Matt Ryan on the move to Indianapolis. Like you said before, Andy, Indianapolis has become the destination for retirement. I mean, look at their last quarterbacks.
Everything from Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck, he was almost like, I want to join San Francisco for a day and retire. But he was actually smart about it. He's still mobile. He still, of course, has the whole, But so that was
got all his mental facilities still, yeah.
Exactly. Then of course, eventually you get
not facilities. But anyway.
But then eventually you get like Phillip Rivers and now Matt Ryan, and who knows? Once they get to players like Jimmy G and Jameis Winston, and maybe even like superstars like Kyle Trask, people like that. You're just gonna have them.
Oh, we got Trask talk coming. It's coming today.
Well, we were just talking about it. Indianapolis is a good team,
right?
So you don't know if it's management. You don't know if it's just because. Well, I mean, Indianapolis is not what I would call like a bustling metropolis per se, but
let this sink in. The Falcons moved on from Matt Ryan. They're paying the majority of his salary, and they bring in future Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota. What? What is that? Who does that?
You see what an incredibly productive player he was last year.
Where? Who? Matt Ryan was productive last year.
Marcus Mariota, he was. He was the one who was starting left out.
He did make sure we had the right Gatorade supplies on the sideline. But, what is Atlanta's plan? Is it Mariota, we're drafting a quarterback this year? And if that's the case, who's going to move out of the first round and pick up draft picks from Atlanta? I don't know.
I'll be honest with you. I think just for that very reason, the draft's going to be interesting to see what goes on day one with the trades, because I really think there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to kind of want to push up to get somebody. There's going to be teams like the Jets that may be willing to trade down just for the simple fact if they feel like they're hot on somebody and they know they can get them at a certain spot, and knowing they've got 2 first-round picks. The Jets could trade one of their picks to get somebody.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking, because the Falcons have a first-round pick, but is it high enough to get the quarterback they want? Well, there's only 2 really outstanding quarterbacks, not outstanding, but quarterbacks that I think are worth the investment of a first-round pick this year.
I agree with that.
Corral, maybe, but you got Malik and you got Kenny. I swear to God, if the Falcons pick Kenny Pickett, I'm going to be so pissed off.
But think about this, though, because if they actually have multiple draft picks in the first round and stuff like that, they might be able to either do one of 2 things. Either, you're absolutely right, trade down, maybe get another additional pick in the second, third round, whatever the case is. You have certain teams that are going to want to be able to get up because, granted, those players may be there, but they might actually be that hidden gem, that spectacular player that they pretty much give away all of their draft picks in order to be able to get to the number 2 spot, in order to be able to draft a quarterback from North Carolina, for example.
Yeah.
I'm not mentioning any Chicago Bear names, but Trubisky is that player that the Bears actually gave up the entire farm for. And
yeah. Well, let's get into some NFC North draft talk, if we will. What's going on up there, guys?
I don't know. I don't know about you, Brian. I don't think there was a whole lot going on in the entire division, really. No, there's just a few things.
Yeah, a few. I think a few.
So, for example, let's say like Detroit. If you want to go with Detroit, because then we can save the best team, the Bears, for last. So, Mike Hughes, of course, was in I think Minnesota or whatever the case was, or anyway, he was UCF cornerback. He was actually signed by Detroit. Detroit also signed tight end Garrett Griffin. Detroit signs linebacker Jared Davis, linebacker Chris Board, quarterback Tim Boyle, and quarterback David Blau. Now, that's actually kind of interesting because Detroit, their quarterback, are they going to keep him? Are they going to trade him? What are you going to do with their quarterback?
There are trade talks now for Goff. They are talking like Goff could be on the move and available. But
to where? San Fran?
To who? I mean, who needs a good backup? I mean, Carolina already made the mistake of paying a backup. They're stuck with Darnold at least this year, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Atlanta signed Mariota, the good backup. Goff is not a starter. Maybe he is in Detroit. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Being able to play in the dome. They play in 2 domes up there in the north, and then you got Green Bay, which is like playing on a parking lot, and you got Chicago, which is Chicago. It's windy, it's rainy, it's cold. You got to deal with terrible field conditions. I mean, the North's a rough place to play. You get 2 games in the dome, and then I think that's why Cousins is doing so well, is the fact that he's in a dome.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I mean, to finish up Detroit, they re-signed Khalif Raymond and outside linebacker Charles Harris. They re-signed they signed wide receiver, DJ Chark Jr. They
DJ Chark's good.
Who?
It's a good sign. Chark's a good signing. I mean, if he gets in the open, he's fast. He's kind of like he's got like a jackrabbit. He's shifty, bounces here and there, but he's got hands. He just fell to Jacksonville and then kind of. I mean, I hate to see him in Detroit, but maybe he'll flourish.
Jacksonville's interesting. An interesting scenario though with what they're kind of trying to do there, but is that going to be successful? Who knows?
That's AFC.
Let me see. They released Trey Flowers. They re-signed safety Tracy Walker. They re-signed center Evan Brown. They re-signed linebacker Alex Anzalone, safety Jalen Elliott, linebacker Sean Dion Hamilton, and safety CJ Moore. They re-signed outside linebacker Rashad Berry and center Ryan McCullum. And there's just a few other things. They also re-signed wide receiver Josh Reynolds to a contract extension.
I mean, Detroit's Detroit. I mean, I said I think they'll make the playoffs jokingly on a few shows ago. They're not far off from actually being a team that you got to worry about. I mean, they're going to play spoiler for a lot of teams this year, I think. But the NFC North is still wide open. You got Chicago with Fields and a lot of potential. You got Minnesota with Cousins that you see his ceiling. And then you got Green Bay, which honestly, they're the cream of the crop in that division. If they get some receivers or they figure out a way for Aaron Rodgers to try to share some money. But so what's on? I mean, we covered Detroit. We've all fell asleep for a little bit. Let's move on to something a little more noteworthy.
Well, if you want, we can go ahead and get through the Vikings, and we can talk about that team in Wisconsin before we get to the best team in the entire league.
Oh, jeez.
So let's see. This, of course, it's extending days from March 30th. Agreed to terms with Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Quarterback Patrick Peterson. They signed cornerback Ty Smith, cornerback Nate Hairston, and offensive line Jesse Davis. They signed cornerback Chandon Sullivan. They signed quarterback Sean Mannion. They agreed to terms with outside linebackers Darius Smith. Agreed to terms with guard center Austin Schlottman. They agreed to terms with defensive tackle Harrison Phillips, tight end Johnny Munt. They signed punter Jordan Berry. They agreed to terms with linebacker Jordan Hicks. Released defensive tackle Michael Pierce. Placed tender on kicker Greg Joseph and agreed to principal contract extension with quarterback Kirk Cousins. So that's Minnesota. Minnesota's actually, I think Minnesota is interesting in the fact that with that scheme, that's what makes Kirk Cousins, in my opinion, actually so effective in that scheme.
Yeah.
You put him in a different scheme, perhaps that's not necessarily geared towards his play set, and I think he's going to struggle, personally.
Look, Justin Jefferson makes everyone look good, ain't it? He's a good receiver. They have a diamond sitting there. If they can build, I mean, Kirk Cousins, he's Kirk Cousins. He's not going to lose games for you, but he's not going to win them for you either. Patrick Peterson coming back to anchor that defense in the secondary is huge for Minnesota. He's not the player he used to be, but with that kind of mind in your defensive backfield, it's going to help facing quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you have half the field where you at least know it's being taken care of, right? I mean, and who else is there? There's nothing really to worry about receiver-wise in the whole division. What's the threat in the NFC North as a receiver? Who's the threat?
Well, see, that's where you kind of look at it. You're like, okay, what are you doing on offensive line? Because I'm going to say that they're probably a 50-50 split. So if you have like San Francisco, for example, which is a run-heavy offense, Minnesota is going to be similar because you have your running back who's been relatively successful over the last couple of years. So you need to be able to actually and healthy. So you need that running game to open up the pass, and of course you need that pass in order to be able to open up the run. With Kirk Cousins' play set, I think that's what makes them relatively successful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to add too. You mentioned Zadarius Smith getting signed by Minnesota. They were missing any kind of a pass rusher last year. That's why their defense is so horrible. Picking him up is key. Now they got a guy. I mean, Green Bay is going to miss him. But picking him up, it just, and obviously with Patrick Peterson anchoring what you were talking about, that their defense just improved big time. So, we say, Green Bay's the cream of the crop of the division. Minnesota basically just said, we're ready.
Well, you have a lot of division within division, your rivals who have actually picked up a lot of players from that team, right? So, it's the familiarity is there. There might be a little bit of an animosity because, from what I'm hearing, Aaron Rodgers these days isn't exactly the most popular person, even in Green Bay.
No.
Oh, my God. Did you see so much hatred? How do you hate Aaron Rodgers? Granted, he's single-handedly costing your team players and whatnot, whatever, but how do you hate having that prolific a quarterback under center knowing you're never out of the game? How do you hate that?
Because now all of a sudden all of your receivers and everybody is gone. Who does he have? You don't have like a Cordero Patterson, for example, that you can actually throw the ball to, catch the ball, defend it, run it back on a kickoff.
I get you.
You don't have that anymore in Green Bay, and it's going to be that's a major rebuild for them as well.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess it sounds like we're segueing.
We are. Yeah, we did that. It's almost
anyway, but yeah, you're exactly right. So, let's go. Let's do this.
Let's go up to the frozen tundra, if you will. The only time people want to go there. Get into it, Brian.
All right. Well, we'll start it with the Aaron Rodgers situation. Now, I have not been on for a couple weeks, and I really haven't been able to voice my opinion on this thing. So I'm just going to make this short and sweet. He's selfish. He completely, in my opinion, ruined every opportunity to try and run something back. You see, the writing was on the wall when he got that contract. He was more worried about his pockets than he was for the rest of the team. He wants to try. He wants to think he's the best. The best is in Tampa, and that guy will defer money, take less money to make sure. Hey, guess what? I want to have a team. I want to win. I want a ring. Aaron just wants to build his bankroll and basically worry about himself in his Shailene or whatever, and build their mansion in Nashville and whatnot. I'm kind of over it. Am I glad? But as the player, am I glad that we have a quarterback with his talents? Absolutely. But he basically killed the team by pulling off what he did. I know, soapbox. So go to the. So we were talking about the receivers. So this is what's interesting about the receivers is he has nobody to throw to besides who's on the team. And as you see right there, this is just an example of taking away two receivers that was their primary receivers does to a ball club. So what happens now? Randall Cobb's old. Lazard's still kind of unproven, and obviously all these other guys, they're just other guys. They're just fill-ins. They've shown nothing. There's really nothing there that you can say, hey, guess what? This guy's going to prove it. We did have another slide, but I guess it didn't come up, which is fine. I can kind of explain it. Basically what it was it was like a metric that showed Davante Adams on the field and Davante Adams off the field, and how many times Rodgers dropped back to pass and what the statistics were. And they were rather similar. But what does that tell you? Does it tell you that Rodgers makes everybody better? Or are we going to finally see what happens when you take the best guy on the offense besides Rodgers off the field, what happens to an offense? As of right now, there's really not a lot of good players in the free agent market. Maybe you could take a couple flyers on some of these guys and do a 1-year prove it deal on these guys. But I really do think that from what I'm reading, the Packers are going to get their guy in the draft. Chris Olave from Ohio State is the one that's been popping up a lot. And I really think they're going to try to get him. They do have the 2 first-round picks. They do need offensive line help because they've lost a couple guys on the line. Other than that, like I said, that's the biggest problem is who's Aaron going to throw to. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on who's going to throw to?
This is who I think they need to take a flyer on in the draft. It's Jameson Williams. He's small, yeah, but he's got winning caliber. He's played at Ohio State and Alabama. He's sure-handed. He's fast. He's got a great route tree. But yeah, he's small. He's smaller than dude from Ohio State, Olave. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I think it's Olave or Olave, or I don't know.
What? I don't know if he's going to be there. I don't know if he's going to fall that far. If he does, great. What is it? Green Bay's got 24 and 28.
Yeah, and I've read some things that they may be even looking to trade up in the draft because they're keying on him.
Yeah, I mean you can because you got that extra pick.
22nd, wide receiver Davante Adams traded to Las Vegas Raiders for a first-round pick, number 22 overall, and a second-round pick, number 53 overall in this year's coming draft.
So at 22, I don't know if he'll be there. We've talked about Jahan Dotson as well.
Yep,
great receiver.
There is another guy too. I just saw this today. It's Treylon Burks from Arkansas. They're also looking at too.
Yeah. So I mean, they definitely need to go receiver, but this is the problem, right? You're at a 2-year window.
Exactly.
If Aaron Rodgers doesn't bring you a ring next year, he doesn't bring you a ring the following year, what do you do if you're Green Bay? That 3rd year, you've got to cut bait, right? Because if they don't cut bait, now you have Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love will make around 22. That third year, fourth year. So your window is, I mean, it's small. You got 2 years. Tampa's window is small too, but you got 2 years to win in Green Bay.
Right. And that's why I brought up the whole who's on the free agent market now still. I mean, and these are just guys that are just like Julio Jones, for example. He can't stay on the field. He's diminished in terms of talent. And I mean, that's what I'm saying. Do you give any of these guys a 1-year prove it deal? And
Julio Jones is not going up to the cold. He's got hamstring issues. He's got ankle issues. You're not putting him up. I mean, how many games do you play a year that the temperature is at or below 50 degrees?
That's a good question. I mean, seriously think about it, but
there's 2 games that you're playing inside.
Right.
You're playing in the fall in one of the most ridiculous climates, on the planet, where it could be 75 Monday, but Sunday you're looking at 32 degrees.
Correct.
I mean, that's the region. I don't think if you're Julio Jones, you even consider playing up north.
I mean, I don't have the list in front of me, but there's other free agent receivers that obviously, what's Odell Beckham going to do? I mean, he wants to go back to LA, but they signed Allen Robinson. Are they really going to sign him back now? Or
Odell's interesting because if you look at his numbers in Cleveland, they're going to say it was Baker Mayfield's issue, but Landry didn't struggle that badly.
And that's another name that's out there too.
Right. Landry can play in the cold.
It's just interesting. I would have figured they would have made a move by now. So it's what it tells me is they're just completely keying on the draft and they're just going to wait. They're just going to do the wait and see approach.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So you're hoping to be able to draft a wide receiver who will immediately become your number one?
It's going to have to.
The Packers have never been a team to truly sign free agents. That they've always looked to the draft. They've always tried to find what they call value for, value paying less for developing somebody. I mean, Adams was a second round pick. But when they drafted him, you already had a good receiving core with Nelson and, it's just, I don't know. The Packers have always been interesting with free agents. They don't go out and make a big splash in free agency. They never have. And the only time they did was Reggie White. I mean,
Reggie set the market though. I mean, he's the one that brought free agency forefront.
Right.
But you look at, go ahead, Andy.
Didn't Valdez-Scantling, didn't he actually go to another team also?
Yes, he's with who is he with? I can't remember where he went.
I don't remember.
I forgot. The Chiefs. He went to the Chiefs.
Okay, you're right. Yeah.
And I think in a little bit of a cost-saving move, now that even though the overall salary cap is not going to hit full bore, this year with Green Bay, you still need to find that to be able to have some sort of savings if you want to be able to sign at least another wide receiver who's going to still want 10, 12, who knows, however many million.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have that 50+ million that's hanging over your head, for the next several years.
It's just, like I said, that's why I said that Aaron killed the organization, hamstrung them. I mean, unless there's something I'm not seeing, I'm not seeing how they're going to be able to create any more cap space than they already have, simply for the fact of what Aaron's making. So
contemplate this, if you will. It's like a very Machiavellian way to look at it, but think about this. Aaron wasn't necessarily happy last year. Even 2 years ago, he wasn't necessarily happy. So I think the best way to destroy this organization who has made me so unhappy is to do exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's a very Machiavellian way to say it, but think about it like that. If you want to be able to take down a whole franchise, you get them to pay you $1 gazillion. Now you can't afford any, and they tend to use their tight ends, relatively effectively. They, of course, running backs and everybody else like that, but you also do need to have that at least number one who's going to give you that. Hey, I remember reading Julian Edelman. He was coming out of retirement, playing for the Packers, playing for Tampa.
But
so you never can tell. But that's a very it's an interesting little scenario.
Yeah, Green Bay situation is really unique because you want to win now. That's their. They've got to have that mentality, but at the same time, they have to build for transitioning from Aaron Rodgers. You have to start doing that now because if you don't, you're going to be in hell, really. I mean, there's no place for you to go. Once Aaron's gone and you don't have a receiving core set up, you don't have an offensive line in front of them, you've got a good defense in Green Bay. That defense is going to keep you in games.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the offensive firepower to match the teams like Tampa, to match, the Rams, the Niners, what good is it? So
right.
you start drafting now to build, and you got to think towards Jordan Love. Because if Jordan Love isn't your answer, what are you going to do? I mean, now you're making a kid with no eggs. You're starting over.
Well, and that's funny because, I mean, that's the $1 million question. Is Jordan Love the answer after it and a lot of reports don't look too good. I mean, it really doesn't. I mean,
so when do they admit failure? When do you move on from that? You got to know it. I mean, he's coming up on a contract in 3 years.
I know, but there's a lot of mocks, a lot of things are being written saying he could be a trade piece with the draft. I mean, to move up to get what they truly want, and then maybe they worry about quarterback next year.
What value does he have right now?
Some people say they can at least get a second or a third round pick for him right now.
Oof. I don't
for Jordan Love.
Yes,
that's a $50 million question for sure.
I mean, you're looking at $22 million down the barrel in 3 years.
I know
it's got to be addressed.
Yeah,
and then if you still got money bags holding the franchise hostage, I mean, do you trade Rodgers if after the second year you don't have a Super Bowl trophy? Do you trade Aaron Rodgers and take a flyer year on Jordan Love and see what he has? There's no quarterbacks in the draft right now. If I'm the Packers, I'm like, okay, I'm building my future now. You're not.
Right. You're
not. So then you're stuck. You're stuck. Yeah. You're spinning your tires in mud.
And like I said, this is going to be an interesting next few weeks, with the draft and seeing what happens. I like I said, I'm a little nervous to see what they do if they trade up to go grab one of these stud receivers, or if they stay pat like they normally do and they get whatever that falls to them. I mean, and on top of that, will they actually go out of their comfort zone and sign one of these free agent receivers?
Right.
Well, the only good thing about it is, I mean, they were able to sign Pat O'Donnell from the Bears, so I mean, at least you have that, because he's probably going to get quite a bit of work this year.
Yeah.
Like for his 37th punt of the day, here's Pat O'Donnell.
Well, as a Bears fan, I was going to say, as a Bears fan, that's what you want.
Yeah.
That's also Machiavellian. We actually sent him up north for that.
Well, he's like retired from playing with the Bears. So,
speaking of segues,
let's go.
So, let's just throw this out there real quick. This is from the 31st of March to the 18th, because you remember a few weeks ago we actually went through the first half of the list, which has been a little over 200 names. It's been incredibly just wow. In descending order, signed defensive back Dane Cruikshank to 1-year deal, which is okay. All right, you can see where you're going for that. Signed Trevor Siemian to a 2-year contract. Pardon me. Hold on 1 second. Signed Trevor Siemian to a 2-year contract. We'll get this. Hold on. Trevor Siemian has been signed by the Bears for a 2-year contract. Because. Anyway.
Hey, there's worse people.
So anyway, offensive line, Dakota Dozier, which is kind of exciting because he's one of those players. Fullback, fellow by the name of Blasting Game. When on earth have you seen any team this day and age pick up a fullback? Matsui, the last notable Bears fullback. I mean, it's just one of those things where that's exciting. You can kind of see where they're going with this. Defensive line, Al-Qaeden. I know what you're thinking. Al-Qaeden Muhammad, 2-year contract. Defensive back, DeAndre Houston Carson. Wide receiver, friend by the name of Pringle. Where have I heard that name before?
Chefs.
Defensive line, Justin Jones, 2-year contract. Wide receiver, St. Brown. Where have I heard that name before?
Green Bay.
Offensive line, Lucas Patrick. Where have I heard that name before?
Green Bay.
Linebacker, Nicholas Morrow. So you see what the Bears are doing. They're loading up on all kinds of goodness for our friend Mr. Fields, who's probably going to go, I would imagine, for the year, 22,000 yards, 137 touchdowns, minus 2 interceptions.
Wow. That's some stats.
Is that after 100 they go back negative or what?
Well, because they literally had to do something because you had, what was it, 56 or 58 sacks last year, which, of course, I think was the tops in the league. So they definitely need to be able to actually do something to be able to protect Justin Fields, as well as actually establish that running game and give him a few moments to be able to actually add our friend Mr. Pringle here. Give him a couple, 2-3 receptions. The thing is, you can see where the Bears are actually trying to, and if they have an opportunity for this fella right here,
the Giant,
yeah.
So, and like we were talking about, off air and stuff like that, he has that bit of a nasty streak, just like Lucas Patrick. In fact, I think it was Poles who actually said, and pardon the parlance, but he basically said that he's a prick and he knows it, and that's actually a good thing for an offensive lineman. You have that aggression, you have that type of thing that can literally establish a game mentality. And so if you know you're going to get popped in the mouth on almost every play that you're going to be running the ball, sooner or later you're going to kind of sort of back off a little bit and try to absorb that instead of taking it full on. And throughout the course of the game, as we all know, that wears on you throughout the course of the game.
6'7", 320 pounds. Now, I want you to let that – 320 is not a lot of mass for 6'7". But looking at his frame, you're looking at a possibility of adding anywhere between 20 to 40 pounds. Mm-hmm. You give this guy 3 years in the league, I bet you he's pushing 350, 360.
Well, I'm not saying he's going to be like a Thomas from Cleveland, not like Hall of Fame, nothing like that. But, if you actually maintain not only your quickness, your hands, your feet, that kind of thing, plus add a little bit extra mass, he could be quite the player. Quite the player.
Dude.
So, but if you have Trevor Jenkins, though, where are you going to put him?
He's
well. Go ahead. Yeah, this is the interesting thing. What the Bears are doing, in my opinion, is they're talking about, or Ryan Poles, the GM, was talking about how he wants to find his players more in the second and third waves to try and get more value for what they're spending. Obviously, Ryan Pace left the team in a bad place.
What do you mean they signed Andy Dalton?
We can all agree that it was very mismanaged. The thing is that what Poles is doing is very interesting, getting a lot of these lower tier guys to come on. But the thing is if you look at some of these guys, they're not half bad. And I think the Bears basically this year is going to be kind of that year where they're just going to have to suck it up and take what's coming to them, because it's not going to be a truly successful season. I think Bear fans are kind of realizing, okay, we may suck this year, but we like where the direction it's already going. I think Fields he needs another year to truly develop in a better offensive scheme, and I think Getsy's going to get that out of him. It's very interesting. I'm actually I'm kind of nervous to see how this plays out because, like I said, the changing of the guard could be happening, and if Poles is doing this correctly, I mean, it could be in 2 years, the Bears could seriously be the top tier in the North, because the North, to be honest with you, it's Minnesota and Green Bay's days are numbered right now. They are. I mean, Detroit's getting better, but the Bears, they're the way Poles is putting this team together. They're putting it together with hungry people, and that's what you want.
So let's think about it like this. Let's think about this real quick. Now, some of the smarter, and you can debate about it, whatever the case is, but it's 100% true that some of the smarter people on the field, of course, are going to be your offensive linemen. Different types of pass blocking, different types of, fortunately, they're not like defensive backs, which, those poor guys. But legitimately, with Ryan Poles, of course, being a former offensive lineman, he can see a different perspective on the same picture. So if he's actually establishing that overall base with your offensive line and things like that, you, of course, can work on your secondary. You can work on your, even on your offense as a secondary notion, because what is going to establish your offense? Your O-line. And if he gets a solid O-line, which will, of course, protect the quarterback, now the quarterback has an opportunity to be able to either, in his particular skill set, run the ball, throw the ball, run and throw the ball at the same time, that kind of thing. So you're actually establishing literally a different paradigm. And so as we're talking about learning how to win and things like that, this is possibly one of the earlier versions of that. And so you have a new coach, new GM, literally almost everything's new. And so this first year is going to be a little bit shaky, but I would say year number 2, year 1.5, year half, 0.5 to year 2, I think you're going to see a monster improvement. That the Bears are probably going to do, not Super Bowl bound, but they're going to do pretty well, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, the division's ripe for the picking. I mean, really, and you got what looks like to be a team that's ready to run. You bring in a fullback. You're building your offensive line. You've got a quarterback that's mobile. You might see some read option. You're going to see them use Justin Fields' ability to help stretch the field. You don't see that much in the league right now with quarterbacks. I mean, Lamar Jackson, but the league's pretty much caught up to Lamar Jackson. But you stretch the field by your quarterback style of play. And if he pulls people up with a threat to run, it's only going to take 1 or 2 pops over the middle deep to soften that back up, and you're back at square one again. So, I mean, they're building right. You build in the trenches. You give that quarterback time. You give him not the skills, but the tools he needs to play within the skills he has. Does that make sense?
Right. Yep.
So, and then you have your fullback, who's not only going to be another protector for you, but he's also going to be one of your release valves in case something breaks down.
Yeah, he's sure-handed. So
you have potentially 1 to 2 tight ends. You have a fullback and a running back that can be your pressure valve. Those are just your pressure valves. But then you also have 1 or 2 of your deep threats, middle threats, things like that. Plus, you have a mobile quarterback.
Right.
Dude.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You're giving him like 14 options within like a 3-play scheme. It's insane.
So Getsky brings a new offense for a quarterback that's still new. Granted, he learned Matt Nagy's, whatever you want to call it, system. But the slate's clean all the way around. The Bears are going to be able to build from nothing and bring it up. Green Bay's coming this way. Minnesota's coming this way. And Detroit's Detroit. You don't know what's going to happen in Detroit because they're so unproven. So, I mean, next year, the Bears could be sitting atop the division. I mean, is it far-fetched to say that they could pull it off this year? Not really, because that division is so up for grabs.
Yep.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. You're forced with Jordan Love with no receivers. Now you have no receivers in Green Bay and really an unproven quarterback. In Minnesota, you've got Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook. There's your threat. If Minnesota somehow levels out, the Bears have a shot to win the division. It's not far-fetched. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Well, who else is going to? Minnesota? I think Minnesota would have more of a chance than Green Bay at this point in the year.
Right.
Because unfortunately, Green Bay, if you're looking at what they currently have and what they're hoping to do,
Well, Green Bay has
Minnesota's
draft
definitely
ammunition,
number one.
so that helps.
Remember too that, and this is the name that always seems to be forgotten with Minnesota, is Adam Thielen.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
he's a solid.
I mean, you've got Jefferson, but Thielen's could be a number one on any team.
Absolutely, except for the Bucs.
Speaking of,
well,
Holy
okay.
segue, Batman.
That was uncanny. So big news in the NFC South, and it's just mainly sits with the team that runs it. Bruce Arians on his way out. Todd Bowles signed as the new head coach, 5-year deal. They just erased the last 2 years remaining on the defensive coordinator spot. The league comes out with a new minority policy saying that you have to have a minority coach as an assistant offensive coach. And the Bucs are like, hold my beer. We'll have a minority head coach. We'll have a minority offensive coordinator. And we're going to throw 2 minority defensive coordinators. They're running a co-defensive coordinatorship, but it's Todd Bowles' defense. Let's not make any mistakes about it. My question is, did Tom Brady force Arians out? They're saying no. They're saying when Brady came in, Arians told him, hey, I'm leaving. You're here. I'm going to give the reins over to Todd Bowles and put him in a position to win. That question's up for debate. I mean, everyone out there thinks that Brady pushed Arians out. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, it's interesting, though, because wasn't it Brady went to a soccer game or out overseas, because isn't the Tampa's owners,
Yeah.
They own one of the clubs out in Europe?
Yep.
Now, I mean, this is obviously a theory, but why would he be out there watching a game at the stadium that Tampa ownership owns? And all of a sudden, a week later, I'm back.
Well, maybe he was going there on a vacation to tell him he's back. The guy has more money than he knows what to do with. Let's be honest.
I mean, but isn't it interesting that Arian? You hear the reports of Arians and him butting heads, and how the season went out when Arians wasn't doing the game planning during the week, but then would change it.
Right? Oh yeah. I mean. There's smoke, there's fire usually, and I'm not saying there's no way that that Brady pushed him out or whatnot, but
look at the poll that Brady had in New England, with the whole Garoppolo situation.
No, I get it.
I mean, I just think there is a strong possibility that's what happened, and maybe Arians took the high road on it and just say, look, I'm doing this for the organization, but then the organization was like, here, we're going to give you this cush job in the office, and here's some more money. Just, we want to win,
Well, Arians has always been that loyal coach. He's always found spots for his guys. He's always put his coaches in positions to excel. So now you have Todd Bowles. Already has head coaching experience with a high school team in New York, the Jets. And he took the Bucs defense from being a laughingstock to being a formidable force in the NFL. I mean, Lovie Smith depleted that defense, and Todd Bowles has reestablished it. I mean, let's make no mistakes about it. Todd Bowles earns his position. He definitely earned that spot. Now, having said that, my question is, the Bucs have decided they're going to put Bruce Arians in the Ring of Honor. They've already made one mistake with a coach in the Ring of Honor with John Gruden. They put him in. Now they've taken him out. Is this just like, okay, we don't have one Super Bowl coach out there. Let's put Arians up there. Or is Bruce Arians really Ring of Honor worthy? I mean, 3 seasons, 1 Super Bowl championship, 1 NFC South championship. Is he Ring of Honor worthy? I mean, if he's in any other team, I don't think he is. I mean,
okay, so I think it's more like kind of like a Bo Jackson thing where he, of course, is Bo Jackson. But if by chance Bo Jackson were to play 1 or 2 more seasons, either in football or in baseball, he would have been able to be in the Hall of Fame in either one. But he just didn't have that longevity, and I think that's – and Aaron's, of course, been around for a little while.
Yeah.
Even before Tampa, he of course Indy, wherever he was.
2-time coach of the year.
So, but there's always seems to be some sort of like a negative that comes out of it. Nothing like overt to where you're like, oh my goodness, we have to remove his name, like a Gruden thing, for example. But there's always been some sort of stories where you have one or two little head-butting incidents. And if you're looking at a quarterback like a Tom Brady who has, we'll just say, multiple Super Bowl wins, who you really think is going to win in that particular scenario?
No, I get it.
So,
but
well, to try to answer that question is tough because you're right. I mean, if it's like any other team, like the Packers, for example, if it was the Packers, his name wouldn't come close to their ring.
Right.
You've got to be able to have longevity with the organization, obviously win championships and stuff like that. But with Tampa has always been the organization to where, I'll be honest, and I'm not trying to, stab you here, but they've been, up and down, but a lot of downs, but when they were up, they won, right? They won. And obviously it's been with two coaches, Gruden and Arians. Otherwise, you look at the history of success with Tampa, and it's not like with Green Bay or San Francisco or whatnot. So in that case, you do want to celebrate greatness, even if it was for a small amount of time.
Well, so I honestly think Bruce Arians is Hall of Fame worthy. He'll be in the Hall of Fame fairly quickly after all said and done. But
I'm just simply talking about the ring.
I get it. I that's what I'm getting to, is that the Ring of Honor in Tampa isn't as sacred as it is other places because there isn't that history. So, yeah, I really do think he's Ring of Honor worthy. I think it's a little fast. They're doing it this season. I mean, it's not like they're like, okay, we'll let you wait, and then we'll bring you in. And then it almost makes you think, okay, maybe there's health issues. Maybe they're trying to get him in while he's still alive. But he says he's healthy. So who knows? But long way around it. Yes, I think he's Ring of Honor worthy in Tampa. If it were in Chicago, not because they've had a lot of success in Chicago, but they have a lot of history. In Green Bay, he's definitely not. But okay, in Tampa, we'll let him in the Ring of Honor.
Plus, I think Tampa might be one of the only teams, if not the only team, that's actually been able to pull off a creamsicle look and not look completely silly.
Oh, okay. 2023.
Indeed.
So Ryan Griffin signs with the Bucs. He's re-signed. He's never really seen the field, but he's always on the roster. He's always either the practice roster. He's always, brought into the team. I want to know. I mean, Blaine Gabbert's obviously not coming back to Tampa. Even after Arians' huge endorsement, Blaine Gabbert's not coming back. But Kyle Trask, really, the number 2 in Tampa? Kyle Trask? What? So we're saying if Tom Brady goes down, we're going to we're going to play with Kyle Trask. We're going to let Kyle Trask take the reins of a team that's built to win now, that's built to go all the way. They're not pulling any punches. That's the goal. That's where they want to be. And it's Kyle Trask. If your aged quarterback goes down with injury, you're left with Kyle Trask.
You need to qualify that statement simply by saying, aged quarterback, yeah, but it's Tom Brady. There's a reason why he's 86 years old still playing in the league. He takes care of himself to an extreme. So, but
I agree.
And to answer your question, here's where you have a Kirk Cousins kind of a thing. Is he going to be a game manager? Is Kyle Trask going to be a game manager if something were to happen to Tom Brady?
Well, he'd have to be.
Or is he going to be a plus side of that to where you're going to be able to, let's just say come back from being down in the fourth quarter. Less than 2 minutes to go.
No. But let me say this. With having that, elder statesman, if you will, as a quarterback, the Bucs got to do everything they can to protect them. They've lost their line. You lose Marpet to retirement. Kappa's on his way to Cincinnati. You do get Shaq Mason, who's huge upgrade for a 5th-round pick because it's New England and they just give stuff away. But I really think the Bucs need to look here in the draft. Zion Johnson, guard, Boston College. The man, I mean, he's a beast. He gives you that girth you need on the inside. He's fairly quick. He's got good hand placement, plays well within his pads. I mean, you got to protect Brady, right? And that's where you got to go. Kyle Trask.
You know what that kid from Boston College, you know who he reminds me of? The Pouncey Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Including especially the center from Pittsburgh, where you had that just nasty streak that you mess with my quarterback, you know, you're gonna taste the back of my hand kind of a deal. and so, you know, yeah, well, that Boston College kid, I mean, he definitely he's an exciting player to watch, that's for sure. I've seen a couple of his highlights. I like that.
Yeah, Zion Johnson, he had the luxury of playing next to the good center. I mean, at Boston College. Probably the best center in the draft. But he's not – if he goes to Tampa, he's not going to play next to some slouch offensive line. You have now Shaq Mason, Ryan Jensen, Tristan Wirfs, and Donovan Smith, who's middle of the pack. He's not outstanding left tackle, but he's middle of the pack. You're not going to find anyone better in free agency or possibly the draft this year, I don't think. So, I don't know. I really think that's where the pick needs to be. You got to protect Brady. You've got to make sure that Kyle Trask doesn't see the field again. That's just my opinion. And then if we're going to touch on the other NFC South teams because we're running out of time, does anyone know if Cordero Patterson has taken any snaps at center? Marcus Mariota? You're going to go into the season with Marcus Mariota as your starting quarterback. What is Atlanta doing? What are
setting themselves up for the future.
They're going to be cleaning the basement for a couple of years. I mean,
well, the thing that I think is happening right there is Mariota's going to be the bridge right now, obviously, but I think Atlanta's really trying to set themselves up for next year for the draft, knowing the quarterback class is much better.
It is better, but Garoppolo is still unemployed. Oh, and he's on the roster for the San Francisco 49ers, but he's still unemployed. Baker Mayfield is still unemployed. He's on the roster for the Cleveland Browns, but basically has no job. Andy Dalton signed with the Saints.
That's who it was. We were talking about that off air.
I mean, what is going on right now? The NFC South is basically saying, okay, Tampa, it's your year. We're going to let you have it, and we're going to play for the future.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, there's, you know, it's even like the North too. I mean, it's kind of like that. It's like some of these other teams are just like, well, we're not going to go for it because knowing we have no chance of beating Tampa. You know, we have no chance.
Saints have had the Bucs number forever. But oh my God! Anyway,
Tampa is like the San Francisco and Dallas Cowboys of the South.
That you just said that's what we touch on this episode, or
that too? But they all suck. Bears winning. Go Bears.
Anyway, we're running out of time, gentlemen. I mean, it went fast today. Unfortunately, we spent a lot of time on the Cheese State and the Windy City, but it is what it is. Well,
you're right. We should have an exclusive Bears show.
We'll touch base on the other conferences more in the future. But any closing thoughts or any statements you guys want to get out there? Nada.
Nah.
Please like, share, and follow the stream. We are on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Until then, I guess we'll see you next time.
Peace.